The wind howled through the empty streets of Duluth, Minnesota, as snow fell in thick, relentless waves, blanketing the town in a heavy silence. Michael Turner, exhausted from a long shift at the animal clinic, gripped the steering wheel, his breath fogging up the windshield. It was the kind of cold that sank into your bones, the kind that made the world feel deserted. He had spent the last 10 hours caring for animals, patching up wounds, delivering difficult news to pet owners, and now all he wanted was to get home, warm up, and maybe have a quiet dinner. But fate had other plans. As he turned onto a small road leading to his neighborhood, something caught his eye, a tiny dark shape standing in the snow, unmoving. At first he thought it was just another pile of ice-covered debris left by the storm, but as his headlights swept over it, his chest tightened. It was a kitten. Michael's foot hit the brake. The tires crunched against the frozen road as he slowed, heart pounding. The kitten, small, fragile, barely a few months old, stood frozen in place, staring at him with wide, terrified eyes. But it wasn't alone. Just beside it, half buried in the snow, was another cat, barely breathing. Michael's gut twisted. He didn't hesitate. Throwing the car into park, he yanked open the door, the brutal wind stinging his face the second he stepped outside. The snow was nearly knee-deep, but he pushed forward, his boots sinking into the frost with every hurried step. As he got closer, his heart clenched. The mother cat, because that's what she had to be, lay still, her fur matted with ice, her body unnaturally limp. The only sign she was alive was the faint, shallow rise and fall of her ribs. And the kitten wasn't leaving her. Michael dropped to his knees in the snow. The little one flinched, taking a small, hesitant step back, but never straying far from the mother's side. It was shivering violently, its tiny paws barely gripping the ice beneath it. It must have been out here for hours, maybe longer, standing guard, waiting for help. Michael swallowed hard. This kitten had refused to leave its mother, even in the face of a brutal winter that could have easily claimed them both. "Hey there, little guy," he murmured, his voice gentle, calm. Slowly, carefully, he reached out a gloved hand. The kitten tensed but didn't run, its small body exhausted from standing in the cold for so long. When Michael touched the mother's fur, it was like ice. His throat tightened. If he had been even an hour later, she wouldn't have made it. He had to move fast. Carefully, he lifted the mother cat first, wrapping her in his coat, pressing her against his chest in a desperate attempt to warm her. That's when the kitten let out a sharp cry, a desperate, pleading sound. It scrambled forward, clawing at his coat, trying to follow. Michael felt his chest tighten. It didn't want to be separated from her. "I've got her," he promised, scooping up the kitten with his free hand. It was light as air, its fur barely more than skin and bones. But the moment it was pressed against his warmth, it stopped struggling. Instead, it buried its tiny face into his arm, its trembling body finally giving in to exhaustion. Michael turned and hurried back to his car, the wind whipping against his back. As soon as he got inside, he blasted the heat, setting the two cats on his lap, wrapping them in whatever warmth he could offer. The mother barely moved. The kitten curled into her fur, its tiny chest rising and falling in rapid, uneven breaths. Michael clenched his jaw. He had seen a lot in his years as a vet. Animals abandoned, lost, injured. But something about this moment, this bond between a mother and her child, hit him deeper than he expected. They had only survived because of each other. They had only survived because the kitten had refused to leave. Michael didn't waste time. He sped toward his clinic, his hands gripping the wheel tightly. The drive felt like forever, but when he finally pulled into the emergency entrance, he threw the door open and rushed inside. His team jumped into action. The mother, now wrapped in heated blankets, an IV in her tiny leg, fought to hang on. Hours passed in tense silence, the storm raging outside, but Michael never left her side, and neither did the kitten. Despite being given food, water, a warm bed, it refused to move from where she lay. It tucked itself against her side, resting its head against her fur, letting out the softest purrs as if whispering, "Please wake up, please stay." Michael had never seen anything like it. Then, just as the first rays of morning peeked through the clinic's frosted windows, it happened. The mother cat stirred. It was small at first, a twitch of her whiskers, a faint movement of her ears. Then, her eyes opened. The kitten chirped excitedly, pressing itself against her, its tiny paws kneading into her fur as if to say, "I knew you wouldn't leave me." Michael let out a slow breath, relief washing over him. He felt his own eyes burn with something he didn't expect. emotion. She had made it. She had fought to stay, and the kitten had fought for her. A love like that. It wasn't just instinct. It was something deeper, something unbreakable. Michael knew then he couldn't let them go back into the world alone. Months later, Elsa, the mother cat he had named after the frozen night that almost took her, was healthy, warm, and safe. And Charlie, the tiny warrior who had never left her side, had grown into a playful, loving little soul. But one thing never changed. Even now, curled up in their new home, Michael's home, Charlie still nuzzled against Elsa, pressing himself close, just like he did that night in the snow. Because some love never fades. Some bonds, no matter how small, are forever. And sometimes, heroes come in the tiniest, most unexpected forms.